Most men don't step away from dating because they're afraid of love. They step away because they're tired of being punished for showing up honest. A man can tell the truth, make the effort, stay loyal, stay steady, and somehow still feel like he's auditioning for a role he never agreed to. After enough years of trying, he starts to see the pattern clearly. Men who grew up in a time where effort meant something now live in a culture that treats effort like the bare minimum. Whenever he gives more than he should, the world gives less than it promised. So he stops giving in places where his effort becomes invisible. He stops performing for people who only notice his value the moment he pulls his energy back. This isn't bitterness, it's clarity. The kind that rises quietly after a man has carried too much for too long. And here's the truth most people avoid. A man doesn't lose himself because he's alone. He loses himself when he keeps trying to prove he's worth being chosen. That's the moment he steps back, not to retreat, not to hide, but to protect the part of himself that still feels honest, grounded and real. And once a man stops competing for approval, something shifts. Loneliness stops feeling dangerous, and the life he builds in that space finally feels like a life that belongs to him. As we go on, you'll see why stepping back from the wrong dynamics doesn't make a man bitter. It quietly makes him better. When effort stops landing, there's a point in a man's life where dating stops feeling like possibility and starts feeling like unpaid work. Especially for a man past 40, it feels strange to work harder for dates than he does for his job. No man wants to feel like he's clocking into a shift every time he shows up for dinner. Performance reviews belong at work, not across a dinner table. She shows up late, scrolls through her phone between stories, and calls it nice on the way out, then disappears for 3 days. Not every date looks like this, but enough of them do that he starts to pay attention. This is where most men start recognizing themselves. Most of the momentum comes from his side. The plans, the warmth, the effort to keep things steady. While she decides later whether any of it counted, it doesn't destroy him. It doesn't break him, but it slowly takes something out of him. Realization hits him one day. This isn't a person he's connecting with anymore. It's a situation he's keeping alive. And one day the question finally lands. Why am I putting in this much effort with someone who wouldn't notice if I stopped? That question hits harder than he expected. Most men don't walk away from dating because they hate women or fear closeness. They walk away because every date starts to feel like an interview where they're the only one preparing. Eventually, something simple rises to the surface. His intentions don't need translation anymore. The right people recognize them instantly. What he finds isn't drama, it's relief. Energy shifts toward what actually nourishes him. Real work, real friends, real routines. He doesn't disappear from people. He just stops disappearing inside the wrong situations. Dating doesn't disappear. It just has to earn its place now. And in that shift, a quiet truth settles in. He was just giving too much to people who treated his effort like background noise. From that moment on, he doesn't date to feel chosen. From here on, respect is the entry point, nothing less. When good intentions stop being seen, a man knows he's reached a strange point in modern dating when even his good intentions start getting misunderstood. He tries something simple, checking if she got home safe, holding the door because that's how he was raised. And somehow it turns into suspicion instead of warmth. Why are you checking on me? You're moving too fast. He wasn't moving fast. He was just being decent. Men over 40 feel this shift the clearest. Back then, effort meant interest. Now, effort means you must have an angle. He starts noticing the mismatch. You may have felt it too, the moment your kindness gets read as something you never meant. That's the part that wears him down. Not rejection, but being misread by default. Most men know exactly what that feels like. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was acting from habit, not strategy. The more grounded he is, the more complicated simple gestures become. He steps back for a simpler reason. He wants his actions to be read the way he meant them. And that's the moment it stops feeling human. He doesn't argue about it. He stops entering spaces where every action needs translation. He stops trying to prove that kindness isn't manipulation. He stops overthinking whether holding the door will be taken the wrong way. It's not withdrawal. It's self-protection. He'd rather be recognized early than misinterpreted endlessly. And in that shift, something steady returns to him. The understanding that his good intentions were never the issue throughout. They were just landing in the wrong story. A man doesn't stop being genuine because the world changed. He stays genuine. He just becomes careful about where he lets that part of himself be seen. Because in the end, the problem was never his intention. It was a world that forgot how to read a good man correctly. If you've ever felt unseen for the right reasons, your presence here means more than you think. If this line hits you, tap the like so I know you're still walking this road with me. When a man feels his effort turned into expectation, there's a moment in dating that men recognize instantly. The moment consistency stops being appreciated and starts being expected. Not ignored, expected. One day thank you disappears, and suddenly he's just the one who's supposed to handle everything. At first, consistency is natural to him. He replies when he says he will. He remembers details she mentioned in passing. Then without warning, connection starts feeling like an obligation he never signed up for. One week he brings clarity to the conversation, and suddenly he's the one responsible for keeping it clear forever. Reliability turns into responsibility faster than anyone admits. No wonder he feels tired without knowing exactly why. If you've ever felt strangely exhausted after doing the right things, there's nothing wrong with you. Every man has felt that switch the moment it happens. He didn't sign up to run both sides of the connection. Showing up sincerely once was all it took for the role to attach itself to him. Men know this shift all too well. The more capable you are, the more invisible the weight becomes. It doesn't make him angry. It just makes something inside him tighten. Because dating shouldn't feel like being promoted into a job he never applied for. He slows down, not to withdraw, but to see what breathes on its own. When he stops initiating, the truth of the connection reveals itself. If he steps back just a little, does she step forward? Or does the whole thing quietly stall? That's where truth shows itself. A man isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for reciprocity, the kind where both sides reach in, not just wait to be led. There's a moment when the weight of the emotional work becomes unmistakable, and it isn't his alone. He doesn't debate it. He simply refuses to turn dating into a performance designed to keep someone comfortable. He saves his presence for women who contribute to the rhythm, not just enjoy the stability he creates. And in that shift, something important settles inside him. He's done trying to impress anyone. At this point, he's only interested in someone who moves with the same steadiness he already lives by. If you felt this shift, you're not the only one. When a man realizes connection shouldn't feel like a test, he reaches a point where something subtle becomes obvious. He's not being met as himself. He's being evaluated, not understood. A harmless question suddenly feels loaded. A delayed reply becomes a clue, and without knowing when it started, he's being measured, not understood. If you've ever felt someone studying your tone instead of hearing your words, you already know this feeling. He stays consistent, and somehow that becomes a let's see how long it lasts. It's not conflict, it's fatigue, the kind that comes from realizing you're being tested on criteria you didn't know existed. Real connection grows through clarity, not surveillance. Take a breath here. This moment hits harder than most men admit. That's the moment a man finally sees the difference. He's not upset that she has standards. Standards don't bother him. The constant evaluation does. He's upset that he's constantly trying to prove he isn't someone he never was. That changes a man. He stops trying to predict reactions because dating shouldn't feel like he's passing through security checkpoints on the way to connection. So he slows the pace, not to pull away, but to see if the pressure eases when he stops overperforming. If the conversation stays warm when he stops filling every silence, and the mood stays steady when he's simply himself, that's real. If connection breathes without interrogation, that's where he belongs. He's not looking for someone who never questions anything. He's looking for someone who doesn't turn every moment into proof of something. A bond grows when curiosity replaces suspicion, when two people show up to understand, not investigate. And once he feels that difference, he doesn't waste another minute in dynamics where he's treated like a puzzle to solve. There's a quiet strength in choosing simplicity, not because he can't handle complexity, but because he'd rather build something new than repair someone's old damage with his own time and patience. Depth never scared him. What scares him is walking into a connection where depth becomes ammunition. And the day he realizes connection should feel like safety, not surveillance, something inside him settles. He'd rather stand alone with his integrity than sit across from someone waiting for him to fail a test he never signed up for. If that sentence touches something in you, it's because you've carried more grace than most people ever saw. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Most men feel these exact shifts long before they ever talk about them. When a man finds peace in the smallest moments, there's a part of a man's life he rarely talks about, the way simple moments steady him more than any conversation ever has. Not because he's avoiding people, but because real life doesn't twist itself into a guessing game. He rinses a cup, wipes down the counter, locks the door before bed, and something clicks. Nothing he's doing right now asks him to prove anything. He notices the contrast clearer with age. That's why these moments hit different, not because he wants isolation, but because they give him something dating rarely does, a place where everything stays what it is. Men over 40 feel this most. Life makes sense when it moves in straight lines. Connection becomes exhausting when it doesn't. He's lived through enough confusing dynamics to recognize the difference. The man who thinks clearly, the man who doesn't need to explain basics, the man who feels his life working again. He's not running from intimacy. He'd rather build a steady day than survive another unpredictable one. And when he realizes his calm isn't an accident, it's a signal, something changes. He stops forcing conversations that bend him out of shape. He chooses the spaces where his presence doesn't get diluted. And strangely, that's when connection becomes possible again. Because he's showing up as a whole man, not a man recovering from pressure. If that line touched something in you, stay with me. This clarity meets you again in the next steps. When a man realizes he's been blamed for what was never his, there comes a moment in dating when a man realizes something quietly unsettling. He is answering questions that don't belong to him. He says something ordinary, and suddenly it becomes the explanation for a mood he didn't create. Every man has lived this at least once. He used to replay every word. Now he spots the shift instantly, and no amount of clarity can fix a conversation built on assumptions. That truth hits every man eventually. The signal becomes simple. Is this person trying to understand or trying to unload? A man can handle emotions, but he can't carry illusions. He doesn't answer verdicts anymore. Roles assigned without his consent no longer receive his energy. If they ask what he meant, the connection can grow. He's learned this the hard way. If they tell him what he meant before he even speaks, it never will. Perfection was never the requirement. Fairness was. He just needs a space where both people own their part instead of rewriting his. Two adults can solve anything, as long as both are willing to own their side of the equation. Wanting fairness doesn't make a man cold. He's not unreasonable. He's done absorbing reactions that were shaped long before he opened his mouth. He stops accepting roles he never agreed to play, and something shifts inside him. He starts choosing people who ask before they assume, who listen before they react, who don't turn every moment into evidence of something else. He can handle emotion. What he won't absorb is responsibility that was never agreed on. You cannot build anything real with someone who needs you to be the problem. When a man can't keep pouring into uncertain places, there's a point in a man's life when uncertainty wears him out faster than effort ever could. Not because he's fragile, but because inconsistency keeps him in a state he's too old to live in, guessing. After enough cycles, he stops calling it chemistry. He calls it what it is, instability. He's been through enough to know the difference between slow growth and emotional whiplash. When someone's tone changes every few days, he doesn't feel desired. He feels recruited for a role he didn't audition for. You've probably felt it too. No man can build on that. No man should try. That truth lands deeper with age. He knows that now. In his younger years, he would analyze every shift, replay messages, look for clues, wonder what he missed. But with age, something in him stops negotiating with inconsistency, not out of pride, out of self-respect. He learns to pay attention to one thing. Does the connection hold when he stops carrying it? If the warmth fades the moment he steps back an inch, it was never real warmth. It was convenience. That realization changes the entire equation, and he can feel the difference instantly. He no longer bends to match someone's swings. He no longer edits himself to keep the peace. He no longer accepts a rhythm that treats him like a temporary thought. A good man doesn't walk away because he's afraid of depth. Consistency isn't a luxury for him. It's oxygen. So he invests only where the tone stays steady, the intention stays clear, and the person in front of him doesn't vanish the moment life gets slightly inconvenient. And in that choice, he becomes stronger, not colder. A man who stops pouring into uncertainty doesn't lose hope. He simply saves it for a connection that can actually hold it. When a man realizes not every battle deserves his peace, there's a kind of tension men recognize instantly. The kind where nothing is wrong, yet suddenly everything becomes a scene. A neutral comment gets treated like a statement. A calm response becomes not caring. A simple boundary becomes a personal attack. Years ago, he would have chased the argument until it settled. He refuses to donate his life to conversations that go nowhere. He's spent too many years doing exactly that. He's done paying that price. He can feel when a discussion is about solving something and when it is just keeping someone entertained. He's lived through actual problems, real setbacks, real loss. He knows what a real disagreement feels like, and when a moment drifts away from sense, a conflict with no direction, a reaction built on nothing new, an argument where no one is trying to understand, only to win. He starts asking different questions. Does this conversation help us move forward? Does anything new appear when we talk? If every argument ends exactly where it started, that's not a conflict. That's a loop. A grown man won't live inside loops. Do we both walk away clearer than when we started? If the answer is yes, he'll stay. He'll listen. He'll repeat himself. He'll meet someone halfway. But if the answer is no, he no longer gives his nights to arguments built to go in circles. He's not avoiding depth. He just won't spend his life chasing arguments that dissolve the second they're held up to reality. A real relationship can withstand tension, but it cannot survive manufactured chaos. So he gives his voice only to people who argue with purpose, who are willing to pause, who can say, "Let's slow down. I don't want to lose us over something small." Men know this truth deeply. Not every reaction deserves a response. Not every moment deserves a battle. Not every battle deserves a man's peace. And the ones who understand that grow stronger, calmer, and more precise about where their heart goes next. When a man's emotional depth goes unrecognized, there's a part of dating people rarely acknowledge. If you've ever felt deep but unseen, this part is yours. Many men do have emotional depth, but it often goes unnoticed in ways they don't talk about. Not ignored as a person, but unrecognized for the inner world he actually carries. He talks about something that's been weighing on him for weeks and hears, "You'll be fine," before he even finishes the sentence. He listens carefully. He remembers details. He shows up with intention. But the moment his own feelings surface, they're treated like background noise. He shares a worry and gets told, "You'll be fine." He mentions something personal and the conversation shifts back to her. He shows softness and suddenly the mood gets uncomfortable. He doesn't need applause. He just needs space to exist as a man, not as a function. Many men reach a point where they realize something subtle. Their steadiness is mistaken for emotional simplicity. People assume he doesn't feel much because he doesn't dramatize it. They assume he's unbothered because he doesn't broadcast discomfort. They assume he has no deeper layers because he doesn't force anyone to see them. That's the part that quietly wears on him. Most men feel this long before they admit it. Dating becomes one-sided when he's expected to absorb someone else's emotional waves, but isn't given room to express his own without being misunderstood. He opens up a little, not dramatically, not seeking attention, just honestly. And instead of being met, he's redirected, dismissed, or told to stay strong. At some point, he realizes the mismatch is bigger than he thought. People like that, he is steady, but they don't know how to relate to the inner man beneath it. That's when he steps back, not to protect himself from rejection, but to protect the parts of him no one bothered to explore. He wants connection, but not one where his emotional world is treated like an afterthought. The woman who reaches him isn't the one who fixes his feelings. She's the one who can sit with them without turning them into a trial. Those people exist more than the headlines suggest. They're just usually quiet, steady, and busy living, not performing. His silence isn't emptiness. It's protection. That's the moment everything becomes clear. And once he recognizes that, he saves his emotional truth for the rare spaces where it's actually received, understood, and handled with the same care he gives to others. Because love doesn't require intensity, it requires recognition. And a man can't stay where his inner world remains invisible. Many men feel this more than they admit. Do you? When a man sees the reality of modern dating, at some point, a man stops asking what went wrong with him and starts paying attention to what's actually happening around him. He realizes something simple but sharp. Most people aren't looking for connection. They're looking for stimulation. Not because people are unkind, but because modern dating rewards the new, not the true. You can be genuine, you can be consistent, you can show up with sincerity. And men see that faster than anyone. Not cynically, practically. Age sharpens your eyesight long before it softens your heart. Most men know the difference between a spark and a path, between someone who is curious for a moment and someone who is willing to build something real. He looks around and sees a culture where people say they want depth but choose excitement. This isn't about blaming anyone. It's about men finally being honest about what these patterns feel like from their side. Men make their own mistakes too, and women are tired in their own ways. This is simply one side of the story being spoken out loud. He realizes dating isn't hard because men have changed. If you're listening to this and wondering whether it's just you, it isn't. You're not the problem. The pace of dating today is. Modern dating values options more than commitment. At his age, he no longer competes with distractions. He no longer pours energy into places where people browse for connection. Instead, he chooses something quieter and far more honest. He invests only where intention is steady, where interest doesn't fluctuate with mood, where someone shows up the same way in real life as they do in the beginning. A man doesn't step away from dating because he's tired of women. He steps away because he's tired of a dating world that treats people like options on a screen, not real lives. And once he sees that truth clearly, he no longer wonders why dating feels different. He simply adjusts his path. He moves toward the few places where words match actions, show up when it matters, and aren't afraid of building something that lasts longer than the moment they're in. By this point in his life, he's done chasing possibility. He chooses certainty that feels earned, real, and human. At this age, peace matters more than potential. And if you're somewhere on that road, thank you for staying with this. It means you're quietly building that life too. There's a quiet turning point in a man's life that nobody warns him about. The moment he stops asking what went wrong around him and starts noticing what finally feels right inside him. Not the temporary highs, just the kind of life that finally feels workable again. People will call it distance, but a man knows the truth. He's not pulling away from the world. He's coming back to the part of him he forgot to protect. And when he does, everything changes. The need to prove anything fades into something calmer than confidence. This is where a man becomes honest again, not with himself. It takes some men a lifetime to reach this point, but it's worth it. What he wants, what he can give, what he refuses to lose ever again. If you're in that place now, let it reshape you. Let it clear the parts of your life that were never built to hold you. Because once a man has tasted a life that doesn't drain him, he doesn't bargain for space in anyone else's world. And from that place, the people who truly fit him don't feel like a fight. They feel like home he didn't know he was allowed to have. A man's clarity isn't a destination, it's a boundary. He builds his own, quiet, simple, unshakable. Tell me this, at your age, what's the one truth you refuse to ignore anymore? Your answer might help another man breathe easier tonight. If this speaks to you, thank you for watching with me. This is Move or Die Stoic. And here's the part that stays with him long after the noise fades. A man who gets himself back no longer waits to be chosen. He simply moves toward the life that fits him now. And if this found you today, I hope it leaves you lighter than it found you.